Joe Rogan was saying that, and you were smearing him for saying that.
That's what Rogan was saying.
No. He did not. Listen, you can't apologize for that. You weren't being clear that it was this, and you know that, dude. You're being so dishonest right now.
Well, you know, sorry. I said I wasn't going to do this.
Wait, here, let's talk accountability. If I had your track record on COVID, I'd be out of business. We are the global empire right now, but we're in the very late stages of that with all of the characteristics of a late stage empire. And what are those characteristics? You know what the left wing and the right wing of the culture war have in common? Both of their dollars been destroyed by the Federal Reserve.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we are going to be watching some highlights from the recent debate on the PBD podcast between Dave Smith and Chris Cuomo. Now, the debate was largely about the pandemic, vax, mandates, and all of those very juicy topics, and it culminates with a brilliant riff at the end from Dave Smith, who summarizes the problems afflicting the West very well, in my opinion. So this is a great and very important debate. So props to PBD and Valuetainment for hosting this one. Hopefully they do lots more of these because they're going to be a hit. So let's get into the first part, which is a brilliant montage of CNN's coverage of the pandemic, closely followed by some of the highlights from the ensuing debate.
Play the clip.
Are the unvaccinated. You are the problem. It is the unvaccinated who are the problem, period, end of story.
The only people that you can blame, this isn't shaming, this is the truth. Maybe they should be shamed, are the unvaccinated.
It's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks.
Anyone you came into contact with will blame you, as will the rest of us who have done the right thing by getting vaccinated.
Because frankly, we know that we can't trust the unvaccinated.
I think it's time to get our moral house in order, Anderson. It's the unvaccinated who are the threat.
All of us vaccinated folks are going to start wearing masks to protect the unvaccinated folks. It's called a Christian value.
You're basically punishing the vaccinated for the sins of the unvaccinated.
People are not behaving honorably. The unvaccinated are basically saying, well, it's open season for me. I can do whatever I want as well.
The unvaccinated are basically beating their breasts, running around the country saying, we don't care, we're living free, and so forth.
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
Clearly, they don't actually want to have like a reckoning about any of this. And the thing that, I mean, for me, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room, it's like it makes your blood boil to watch this and kind of relive it and remember that, and just to think that, right, like you just mentioned the stock of big pharma companies and how much money they were making off of it. Look,
this is Pfizer, by the way. Yeah. Check this out.
It's going pretty good for them. Hey, by the way, did that ever come up on CNN? You think they ever had that graphic up there?
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah, because the whole point was they were making money. They were also given absolute liability against any suits for vaccine injuries.
Yeah.
And
pretty corrupt.
And it was a very weird combination of things we had never seen before. And the company said, we won't make it under Operation Warp Speed's guidelines unless you insulate us from litigation for this process. And the government said, okay, we need it.
And yet you guys spent every day, all day long, demonizing American people who were skeptical about this, demonizing the people rather than demonizing the powerful.
So
listen, listen, hold on, let me just say for a second.
All right, go ahead.
2020 was the largest transfer of wealth in human history. And it was from the working and middle class in America to the millionaires and billionaire class. That you can go look up the data on that. They got richer than ever before. Joe Rogan is bigger than every single show at CNN combined and gets paid more than every single person at CNN combined. And he was 100% right about this thing through the entire time.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he wasn't. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me get this point out here.
Tell me what he was right about.
Okay. How about, you know what you just revealed last month on Pat's show about ivermectin?
Yeah.
Joe Rogan was saying that, and you were smearing him for saying that.
Yeah.
You literally said he's taking horse dewormer.
Yes.
He should be ashamed of himself. You pleaded with your audience to not take it.
Yes.
Then you come back around and you go, hey, Pat, you know what I just found out? Turns out this thing isn't for animals. Turns out humans are. But Chris,
that's
a 5-minute Google search and you would have known that.
First of all,
how do you not apologize to Joe Rogan?
Listen, do you know who disagrees with you? Do you know who disagrees with you? The people who make ivermectin disagree with you.
Hold on. What do they disagree with me about?
That the drug should not be taken as a standalone for COVID-19.
I never said it should.
That's what Rogan was saying.
No. He did not. No, listen. See, this is the thing, Chris.
Yeah,
that is a lie. That is a blatant lie. Joe Rogan. So you just pretended that I said it's a standalone for COVID. No. Here's what it always was. Here's what Joe Rogan said. My doctor prescribed it to me, along with several other medications, just like your doctor prescribed it to you. That's what he said. What I'm saying is that it's not horse dewormer, as you and everybody else at CNN mindlessly repeated.
Now,
what he said, no, let me finish.
Go
what
ahead.
He said, and what I'm saying is that it is a medicine that's been prescribed to people millions and I think billions of times, and it was totally demonized. Why? You already said why. You said it 2 years too late, but you already said why.
No, here's
because
why.
No one owned it. You told me I should apologize. So what do you think I should apologize for? And then I'll tell you what I think you should apologize for.
Well, I know what you think I should apologize for. Obviously, there was so much talk that they don't want you to take ivermectin. Ivermectin is the way to go. Take it. Joe Rogan got better from ivermectin. And by the way, I don't like what people did to Joe Rogan about ivermectin. I don't like it.
You did it.
No.
Okay, yes, you did.
Find the clips.
Dude, find the clips. You shamed Joe Rogan.
Find the clips.
You said he's taking horse dewormer. You and Don Lemon were chuckling at each other about it.
No,
I'll go find the clip.
First of all, you just saw the clips.
I watched it.
I'm not chuckling. I'm listening to Don. But
no. The clip I'm talking about wasn't on there, and it's absolutely there. Here, do we have it? Hold on. Let's play the clip.
Injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to.
Oh, my God.
What person? You talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer. Really?
They are shaming themselves.
That's what it is.
To shame them. They're shaming themselves.
So you're taking a dewormer right now, Chris. Chris, you can't apologize for that. You weren't being clear that it was this, and you know that, dude. You're being so dishonest right now, man.
I'm not
You were talking about ivermectin, the drug. You were not talking about this version of ivermectin. Come on, man.
I was responding to a situation where we were told that this is what people were searching out to take, and nobody knew what it was going to do to them.
Guys, if you're enjoying this debate, and if you're enjoying the highlight, guys, if you're enjoying this debate and if you like seeing all these highlights, if you're getting some value from this content, I'd really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Happy to have you. Back to it.
When the people like me, and I'm sure a lot of you, were basically turned into second-class citizens, weren't allowed to go into restaurants, weren't allowed to go to sporting events, weren't allowed to go into a lot of different office buildings, things like that, and you personally, along with everyone at CNN, cheered that on. You mused and joked around when you were interviewing Dr. Fauci about what rights the unvaccinated should have. So Dr. Gupta goes to Joe Rogan and says, it is in the middle of all this. He goes, so are you going to get the vaccine? And Joe goes, no, I just had COVID. Why would I get it? I got natural immunity. It's stronger than the vaccine. And Dr. Gupta went, yeah, that's a good point. He had nothing for him. He had no response. Like when you were, listen.
That's not even close to accurate. Okay?
Yeah. Well, remember last time we played the clip and I was right? Remember last time?
You weren't right about that either. You weren't right about that
Chris,
either.
dude, you're in denial here, man. It's so clear that you said that. Just admit it, man, and we can move on.
Again, here's the main difference. You may not say it this way, but this is what I think you're suggesting. You believe that you were demonized for not taking the vaccine, and that was wrong because it was right to not take the vaccine.
Okay. No. First of all, I don't believe I was demonized for taking the vaccine. We just played video proof of it. Me, and it's not me, it's me and tens of millions of Americans were demonized to take the vaccine. Now, when you say it was wrong because you weren't supposed to take the vaccine, I think, and this is summing up a lot in a short period of time, I think there was a strong argument in the initial wave of COVID, if you were old and sick and had never had COVID, it might have been a good idea to take the vaccine.
What if you lived with someone who was old and sick?
That probably wouldn't have done anything. Literally, it's not going to stop.
You don't know what you're talking about.
No, I do know what I'm talking about.
The science is obvious on this. The first, look, again.
Chris, you got a lot of nerve not apologizing and then telling me I don't know what I'm talking about.
What do you want me to apologize for? For telling people to take the vaccine?
Okay, let's just stick with Joe Rogan. for mocking and smearing a person from the #1 show at CNN and then years later admitting he was completely right about what he said. How is that not attached to an apology? If I ever smeared someone aggressively and then 2 years later I had to admit that I come out and just say what you said to Pat on his podcast was exactly what Joe Rogan was saying this whole time. You go, first of all, it's not horse dewormer, it's used on people, it's very safe, and my doctor prescribed it to me. That's why I'm taking it. Yes, if I ever did that to someone, I would apologize for that.
But it's not the right context. And first of all, it's both, right? It's veterinary grade and human grade. I was not making a market.
Which one do you think Rogan was taking?
I hope he was taking the human grade if he was prescribed it.
Which one do you think Joe Rogan, who just signed his second $200 million deal, was taking? Do you think he was stealing it out of the cat bowl, or do you think he had a doctor
I'm sure they prescribed it.
So then you guys were all wrong for demonizing him.
I think that it was wrong. Look, you guys want simple answers. You guys want simple answers to this, and it's not simple.
No, this is simple. This one is simple.
It's not simple.
The vaccine question might be more difficult. This is really simple.
So obviously Dave Smith is walking Chris Cuomo around like a puppy dog during this debate. And that's because Dave is right and Chris Cuomo is wrong, and people aren't stupid. And this is not just a milquetoast debate. This is a subject that people are actually very emotionally attached to because people actually lived this. And in many, many cases, this is something that had a devastating impact on people. So we will not forget all of the lies being peddled by these mainstream media propagandists. No way. And this was actually their downfall. I mean, they were already on the path to being irrelevant, but this just sped up the process because people could see that they were being lied to and treated like children, and they had to turn on their TV in order to be told what they could and couldn't do. And if you're a thinking person, you would pretty quickly clock that this is not normal. I mean, surely you remember the lies. The Wuhan bat soup at the wet market, and if you bring up the lab leak, you're a racist and a conspiracy theorist. Ivermectin is a horse dewormer. Vaccines stop the spread. Vaccines are safe and effective. The boosters are necessary. Wearing a filthy piece of cloth on your face will help you not catch the cold. Being locked in your house, living on top of people is good for your health as opposed to fresh air, sunshine, human connection, exercise, and other basic aspects of human well-being.
The less contact we have with other people, the less chance we're going to become infected.
Hospitals are overrun by the unvaccinated. Died from COVID or died with COVID. The covering up of the massive rise in all-cause mortality around the world and the side effects of the jab. Need I go on? And who were the main purveyors of this garbage? I mean, beside the people who are actually behind the whole thing, which is a discussion for Rumble, the biggest purveyors of this crap were the mainstream medias, and the worst culprit was CNN. And who were the biggest talking heads at CNN at the time? Diva Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo.
Here it is, the official re-entry from the basement.
Cuomo's 17-year-old daughter Bella has been taking care of the family.
My dad has corona, but he's going to be okay. He's actually doing really well right now.
And showed off the hazmat suit she used when checking on her dad in the basement.
Mom, bathroom!
What, hon?
Bathroom! Bathroom!
Oh, that's a big boy, isn't he?
So, I mean, we're not talking about a guy who just got things wrong, as so many did during that time. We are talking about one of the world's foremost propagandists at this time. We are talking about a guy who calls Anthony Fauci Tony.
You got a lot of people in your profession who waxed poetically for weeks and weeks about how Florida was going to be just like New York. Wait 2 weeks, Florida's going to be next. Just like Italy, wait 2 weeks. Well, hell, we're 8 weeks away from that, and it hasn't happened.
What now? Shh. The really ugly reality is that Pence still sat there and enjoyed this maskless choir of more than 100 singing on Sunday. It doesn't matter if you're singing songs to the Lord. There is no commandment that thou shalt do stupid things in my name and get COVID. Quarantine may become the reality for more of us in this country. And for many of us, here's the scary part, a second time. It is possible you may see me in my basement once again.
Oh, that's a big boy, isn't he?
Why? Because this isn't about being scared. This is about scaring us straight with the facts. This isn't Fauci's fight. The science is obvious. This is about Trump and the Trumpers. He's going to have his main health guy stand up and say, fight back against the regulations to keep you safe. You know, you want to hide on state news, you do it. But someday, you're going to have to deal with real questions. And either you're going to come on a show or you're going to do it, but you know what? We may go back to old school. And maybe the questions will come find you. Maybe when you're living your life nice and easy, because you don't have the concerns that these same people that you're telling to rise up, that they have. Maybe the questions will come and find you, because you have to answer.
Oh, the irony! It's too much!
So unless there is a full-on, genuine, heartfelt repentance, then it is unforgivable in my books. I mean, I don't want to hear you come on PBD's show and say, hey, listen, I'm taking ivermectin now. Just because you were let go by CNN and now you're trying to find a way in with the cool kids in the alternative media space. No, we will not forget how you tried to scare the absolute shit out of the entire world, telling about the dreadful story of your little flu. With Don Lemon crying about it live on TV like an absolute princess, putting the fear of God in some poor grandma sitting in her home all alone.
Invite grandma? This could be her last Thanksgiving? Yeah, if you invite her to a place where she can get sick and die.
I'm sorry, that was the next thing. Sorry, I told you I was distracted. Deanna, sorry about that. Thank you, Deanna.
Can I just tell you, by the way, we're all, I mean, for you being on air, and I know, you know, this is one of those situations where you try to be stoic and focus on the headlines. It's tough. It's tough. So, I also feel for Chris, and I know it's tough for you, and we're all fighting and rooting for him tonight.
Well, sorry. I said I wasn't going to do this. Jesus. He's probably sitting at home laughing at me. So here's the thing. I have to, when I walk into work every day, and Chris and I are really good friends. We live near each other. And so when I walk into work every day, I have to walk by where Chris is. So I usually go to his office and I say, and what's doing. Sometimes I bring the dogs and we just say hello. Anyway, he's just not here. And we have this great relationship.
I've known Chris. Chris and I go back to when he and I both worked at ABC. He was one of the first people to congratulate me when I was pregnant, telling me that meant I was healthy.
I mean, how ridiculous and pathetic is that? They are literally acting like he died, or at the very least, like he's been given a very short time to live. And this was in April 2020, guys. By this time, I had already started engaging in civil unrest, and I was halfway through my manifesto about the coming based revolution. Still working on that. So, I mean, he can argue all day long around an apology, and I kind of do get that, because you do not want to apologize to the mob. But this is different, because normally apologizing to the mob means that somebody said something politically incorrect that's probably true, and they've offended a bunch of wokies and don't want to lose their job in Hollywood, so they have to come out and give a little groveling apology. But this is different. He was wrong, and he was very wrong on a major scale, to the detriment of lots and lots of people who trusted him at the time. So at the very, very least, him and all of his corporate media buddies owe people an apology. And now on to the next part, where Dave tears him apart over lockdowns and mandates.
It's kind of weird being a libertarian in our system. You don't really have a home, but it does kind of give you an out whenever you want, because you don't have to be part of the other two. But, for me...
Yeah, I get to just be right about everything.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. There's a convenience in never having to own any of the conversations. But what I'm saying is...
No, I mean, listen, Chris, I own my track record. I do a show 3 days a week. I've been doing it. I don't know how many of you guys listen to it, but I've been doing it through... I have a track record just alongside yours. I'll put my track record up there, and I'm very proud of it. So I do have to own something. I was out there in real time being against the lockdowns, being against the stupid mandates like outdoor mask mandate. It was so... Listen, this stuff wasn't that... I mean, I don't mean to bring the conversation back to COVID.
Why do you think they did it?
But well, listen, hold on. But listen, forget even why they did it, okay? Because I have my theories on that, but I don't know for sure. I don't know what's in people's hearts and minds. What I do know is that saying something like, I'm vaccinated and I need to force you to get vaccinated so that you protect me, was so profoundly stupid that the second someone said that, I was like, now that doesn't make any sense.
And I'll tell you what, you can look this up for yourselves. There have been multiple studies that show, first of all, just some basic things, right? Hospitalizations, 9 out of 10, once the vaccine came out, were unvaccinated people. That should matter, okay? Now, as you went through the iterations of the variants, should they have changed? Yes, 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 but it'll never happen. You'll never hear that. where things stand today. Because if there's no review, it'll never happen. But the idea of why you were supposed to take the vaccine was very basic. With the later variants, we really had mistakes made in this, in my opinion. Now, a lot of them will disagree with me and say that's not true. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not a scientist. It still did what it was supposed to do, and the boosters made up the lag. I don't know that that's true. And they are doing very little to find out what the vaccine is doing in people, and they're doing very little to find out what the virus is doing in people. Well, and all the research that's coming out is saying those are our two biggest issues health-wise that we're dealing with.
Well, Chris, I really hope you read the book that I just gave you, man, because it destroys all of these arguments. Look, the truth is that, and the evidence is overwhelming at this point, okay? Like, you can go through this. It is just pure science, pure facts and charts. All of the lockdowns, you can't point to any, you can't find any trend if you look at the lockdown states versus the not lockdown states, or the lockdown countries versus the not lockdown countries, the ones that, the counties where there was mass compliance versus the counties where there wasn't mass compliance, the counties where there was more vaccine passports versus where there, you can't find any trend in any of it. The truth is that the virus did what the virus was going to do, and none of these government policies did a thing to slow it down. But
you don't think that hospitalizations went down because of the vaccine?
Listen, read the book, man. I'm telling you. No, it's not a conclusive point. But what these policies did do is they destroyed the lives of tens of millions of people. And by the way, Chris, this is why there's so much anger about this stuff, okay? This is why people are so furious and why people do kind of want to see somebody, because listen, the thing, and listen, I give you a lot of credit for doing this. Like, I really am grateful to you for being on this stage with me here. The thing about it is like, I think from my perspective, and I really do think I speak for millions of Americans when I say this, this is all we get. You. Like, there's no one else. Fauci's never going to do a debate like this. None of the other, like, top establishment scientists will go, well, hold on, let me just finish my point. Let me finish my point. Yeah, because they're cowards and they're wrong. None of them will go on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? What did he end up? You remember the pot that was offered for that doctor who was like, everyone chipped in? I think you chipped in for it. Yeah, like everyone's, he would raise millions of dollars. They won't debate RFK. They won't do any of this. And so it's like, look, I think a lot of people are angry about this stuff. Now, back to the point you were making here, okay? When we're talking about the specifically the vaccine passports, okay? This was during the Omicron wave.
Right.
We're talking late 2021.
Right.
There has been, at this point, you had almost 2 years of COVID hysteria, with the establishment being wrong about every single prescription along the way. And meanwhile, there's also mass censorship of any of the experts who come out against it. I mean, the Great Barrington Declaration, that happened in the fall of 2020. This is a full year later after that, after all these experts came out and said the government got this entire response wrong and ruined tens of millions of people's lives. But listen, if you look at, there's no question about...
They were seen as a minority group.
Yeah, but they were a group of experts. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, the ones who
I'm just
tell
saying,
the truth.
that was shot down.
If you look at what Omicron did, okay, this was after mass vaccination, okay? It tore through the unvaccinated areas and the vaccinated just alike. You cannot look at one chart and say, oh, look, this area had high vaccination rates, and therefore Omicron didn't really come in here and no, tore through it just the same as it did everybody else.
It tore through it in terms of cases, not severe cases.
It's not true.
Look, I agree.
It's not true.
I agree. Well, look, again, we can look at the data. You can put the data up. I mean, this is what I do. But what I'm saying is this. This
is what I do too, with a much better track record, Chris. I'm just being honest. This is the truth.
I don't know that you have a better track record. I really don't know that you have a better track record.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Right.
Do you think lockdowns worked? Did they cause more harm than good? By the way, there was no good that was caused. But do you think they caused more harm than good?
The correct answer is you can look again. I wish
I just
these
want to
things
go
were
through
that simple.
Okay.
I can argue yes, I can argue no. The government will say yes.
No, but I'm asking you.
The people who are in charge of Robert Redfield will say yes.
Do you think that lockdowns mitigated the virus and were not offset by the catastrophic harm that lockdowns caused?
That's a different question. And that's hard to know. It caused so much pain in this country that it's hard to say. How do you value what they believe was saved in terms of lives?
Go look at the Johns Hopkins study on lockdowns. They looked at all the lockdown areas versus the areas that didn't lock down. They found no difference in mitigating the virus. It was just the disaster, and I was against the lockdowns from the very beginning. I was against the ridiculous outdoor mask wearing. I was against all of the mandates, all of people being deemed non-essential, all of this stuff.
I get it, but it wasn't just America. You make it sound like, you know...
I'm against it everywhere.
But what I'm saying is, but it matters that it happened everywhere. It matters, and it happened in other places longer. And in Sweden. Yeah, look at Sweden. How'd it work out for them?
What? Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
Sweden, by the way, here's how it worked out for Sweden. Lowest excess mortality rate in all of Europe. That's how it worked out for Sweden.
They had rates of illness in there.
Yes.
And then they didn't build up the herd immunity they thought they were going to by going that way.
Okay,
and the UK wound up watching them and reversing course.
And why is it that Sweden has the lowest excess mortality rate in all of Europe? Because of all of the deaths that were caused by the lockdowns. That's why. They were the ones who didn't do that to themselves. And man, I mean, you look at, you know, Pat brought up the number of small businesses that were ruined during the lockdowns. That's the least of it. And that's huge. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. But you're talking about suicides, families breaking up, children falling behind, just things that people will never, and not just that, but also just, look, here's the thing, right? And this is what I think the media class never really grapples with. What was, if I were to ask you, what was the cost of the war in Iraq? Okay? What was the cost of it? Now, you might try to find what you go, okay, we spent $2 trillion on the war in Iraq. Okay, there were 1 million Iraqis died as a result of that war. Over 10 million were displaced. You could look at the thousands of America's bravest young boys who killed themselves, tens of thousands, if you want to count the ones who blew their brains out in the aftermath of it. Okay? But then you know what the cost of it was? Everything that we're living through today in our country. Donald Trump being president, the lack of trust in the corporate media, the culture war, everyone being pitted. Like, these things have costs for your society down the road that are impossible to measure. And the costs of the lockdowns, it's going to be another 15, 20 years before we look back and really recognize it. By the way, one of the costs of the lockdowns was the Summer of Love. The riots that caused billions of dollars in property damage across you remember the fiery but peaceful riots of 2020?
Yeah, I was in them.
There was, they were, that was a cost of it. I mean, those riots didn't just come out of, it wasn't just a coincidence that they came on the heels of 3 months of lockdowns.
I don't need to have these conversations. They don't particularly rate well. I get a lot of criticism from people in power. I get
Good. That should be a badge of honor, man. You're a newsman, right?
It depends on the... Look, you don't know me, okay? The idea that I am conflict averse is silly. The idea that I don't test power is silly. What I'm talking about here is you're pretending, because you can. You have the luxury of not worrying about what happens when you say what you say. I work for a place that will get a phone call from someone that they care about, okay? It will matter to them. And you can say, well, they work for this 3-letter agency that are all, you know, bad people.
If I had, let me tell you something. This is what's really infuriating about you saying that, right? I understand the pressures at CNN where powerful people could make a phone call and then you could be in a lot of trouble.
No, it's just an accountability proposition.
Here, let's talk accountability. If I had your track record on COVID, I'd be out of business. Period. No one would listen to me anymore. I would have no way of making money.
Argue the reverse.
I'd be ruined.
I would argue the reverse.
Absolutely ruined.
If you didn't tell people that there were easy ways to get past COVID and that the vaccine was a joke and everything that happened was a joke, I don't think you'd be in business. I think if you weren't doing these things, I don't think you'd have the same platform because it sells very well in digital media.
No, I mean, it's just, first off, I never said the things that you just said. The thing is that, yes, you're right. Me being against lockdowns, against mandates, against the corruption of big pharma, again, yes, that did help.
No, and the vaccine. You don't think people should have taken the vaccine?
I already said that I do think there was a group of people early on who should have taken the vaccine.
But what is that group?
I said already, I'll say it. I think old, sick people who had never had COVID.
And the people who were with them?
No, I don't agree with that.
Really?
But I think there was a strong argument for that demographic. By the way, old, sick people who had COVID, Probably unnecessary to take the vaccine. Your likelihood of dying after you had already beat COVID once plummeted way, way down. Natural immunity is stronger than the vaccine, as it is with almost all
And by
vaccines.
the way, it's interesting you're
all
saying
of the studies show that hybrid immunity, which is having gotten it from the virus and also having the vaccine, is the best level of immunity. That's what the research says.
It's not true.
So just totally one-sided here for Dave Smith. But what's more is that this is just a glowing endorsement for alternative media. On one side, you have the NPC message or the current thing being peddled by Cuomo. And then on the other side, you've got Dave Smith, who's a very learned guy, very well-read, very interesting guy, and a guy who's willing to debate his ideas against basically anybody and who regularly wins. And on a slightly different note, I've seen a lot of people criticizing Patrick Bet David, Tim Pool, for example, about his decision to bring on Chris Cuomo. They're saying it's a really bad move, and I actually kind of disagree with them about that. I mean, I see what they mean, especially Tim Pool makes a good point about it, saying that Chris Cuomo is not a guy with a big following. He's not going to attract a big audience and bring people over to valuetainment. And is he really going to bring that much perspective to the show? Probably not. But here's why I think PBD brought him on. Similarly to Piers Morgan's little sacrificial lambs, like little gay James and the room temp IQ socialist lady, it makes for great viewing to see these debates. I mean, people like seeing these lambs get sacrificed. But having the lambs comes at a cost because there aren't too many people on the mainstream political left who hold these very sort of mainstream normie ideas who are willing to come on and do long form debates like this, because we see what happens to them, as is happening to Chris Cuomo in this video. But the reason why Cuomo's here is because it's pretty much his only option. And I mean, I'd imagine that PBD would be giving him a pretty decent packet for this. So I actually think this is kind of a smart move from Cuomo, if I'm honest, even though he's being totally embarrassed and exposed in this debate. Because if he tries to go out on his own, and if he tries to start his own show without a network, that will be a massive failure. Just look what's happening with Don Lemon with his new YouTube channel. With these numbers, this is an abject failure for the Diva Don, who was meant to be one of the biggest names in news, and who demanded that Elon Musk fly him and his boyfriend out private, put them up in hotels, get massages for the boys, plus over $10 million annually.
You know what? Is that actually happened? Of course it happened. I think this is a reflection of how just
oh my God,
dark we've become.
Oh my God.
And now you see that when you take CNN away, literally no one cares about the Diva Don's show, and he would be having an absolute hissy fit about it, because with those sorts of numbers, he'd be struggling to make minimum wage. So, I mean, Chris has done the right thing, Don's done the wrong thing, and if Don were to do what Chris has done and just go and be a part of an alternative network where he can just get owned in a lot of debates for people's entertainments and the numbers would be big, it may be humiliating, but at least people would care. And maybe he could even hold on to some semblance of self-respect because he actually engages in debates. But no, probably because he would actually do way worse than Chris Cuomo, because Don Lemon is a genuinely unintelligent person. And now onto the last bit here, which is actually my favorite bit of the entire debate, where Dave Smith spits some absolute fire. Listen closely.
If you turn off cable news, turns out this country's actually pretty cool and we're not that racist of a place to be in. And if they would stop provoking these racial conflicts, there really wouldn't be much.
I think the media is an echo of what you have two teams that are about. The reason that we're in the situation that we're in is that division is the best currency in politics.
Yep.
It works the best, okay? Enragement works in media, digital, linear, cable, doesn't matter. People being angry, they'll watch. They'll come in. Everybody's got a reason to be angry about something. The only thing that can happen in a two-party system is exactly what we're living. Zero sum. I can only win if he loses. It is way easier for me to make him lose than it is for me to prove to you that I am better. It's way easier to find something with him that's wrong. That's what they're doing. And it's been, you used earlier that this has been accelerating or evolving, this dynamic. I agree with you, but in reverse. I think it's a devolving. I think that this is a breaking down of civility, of decency, of compromise, cooperation. You say, I want to get into Congress, I want to get things done, I'm going to work with the other side. You are a dead man in a primary, especially on the right. That's what this is. The only antidote is bottom up. It will never happen top down.
Well, the thing is that we're in a collapsing empire right now, and that's our job is to try to right this ship. But we're in a late stage empire, and that's what America is. And this rarely comes up in corporate media, but the USA is the most powerful empire in the history of the world, and we are the global empire right now. But we're in the very late stages of that with all of the characteristics of a late stage empire. And what are those characteristics? Being way too expanded militarily, being very, very far in debt, and then what ultimately happens after that? The culture devolves into decadence. And that's why things are dumber than they've ever been before. And that's why, you know, you have people, whether it's like a gay pride parade where two guys are like slapping their butt cheeks together and then they're going, we're standing up for our rights. Like, no, you're not. You're not fighting for rights. This is decadence. When you see, if you look back at, say, like William F. Buckley's firing line, when it would be William F. Buckley going at it with Gore Vidal, okay, well, just the level of intelligence there between that and like Sean Hannity going at it with Don Lemon, no offense. There's been a significant fall off. And I think that's what's going on all throughout the country. And what's happening is that the most powerful people are trying to pit us against each other so that we're constantly fighting in a culture war so that we never all get together and realize that, you know what the left wing and the right wing of the culture war have in common? Both of their dollars been destroyed by the Federal Reserve. Okay? But that never gets covered on CNN. You know what I mean? Like that I never see like a big segment about that. Hey, how come all those years having the #1 CNN show, not one segment about the secrecy of the Federal Reserve, the secrecy of the CIA? Instead, all we get from the corporate media is, I don't know, the unvaccinated, the Trump supporter, the Biden supporter, pitting Americans against each other and all the while blaming the American people for these problems. When that's just not true. Most of the American people are good people. They want to take care of their family, go to work, be a member of their community, try to give their kids a little bit more than they had. That's what, and if we had a better media in this country, they would be laser focused on the halls of power and how corrupt they are. Because man, is there a lot of corruption going on at the top here.
Facts. And this is something that I believe that a lot of Americans in particular aren't very hip to. America is absolutely showing the signs of an empire in decline, as Dave said. Some of the points that he raised being way too expanded militarily. Afghanistan to Ukraine to Israel, plus all of the proxy conflicts that they're involved in around the world in one way or another. And other examples of this particular thing happening throughout history that signify the end of an empire include Napoleonic France, who drove their enemies in Europe in the form of Britain, Russia, Austria, and Prussia into an alliance that couldn't be overcome. America are doing a similar thing at the moment, driving Russia into the arms of China, amongst, of course, all of the other nations in the BRICS alliance. And even more examples of overexpanded militaries can be seen in the Mongols, Alexander the Great's Greece, Nazi Germany, the Romans, particularly the Byzantines, and more. He also mentioned being far into debt, which leads to decadence. And Weimar Germany was the perfect example of this. After Germany's defeat in World War I, the Treaty of Versailles saw the Weimar Republic plunged into massive and unsustainable debt, with inflation and unemployment going through the roof, and the culture falling into complete decadence, with rampant homosexuality, prostitution, pedophilia, and even transgenderism. Sound familiar at all? This led to the rise of the National Socialist Party and Hitler becoming the German Chancellor in 1933. And the rest is history. So America, and the West in general, trickling down from America, is experiencing extreme and severe decadence that, by the way, guys, is not getting any better. So, I mean, just look at what is happening at Pride Month. I mean, I'm not going to show any videos of this, but just today there were videos circulating of the absolutely grotesque things that these people are doing in the middle of the street. It's just mind-blowing to think that these things are happening in the middle of our streets. Any self-respecting society would have these people locked up in an instant. But no, that doesn't happen. It gets celebrated. And the leaders of these countries will go out and actually join these parades. How embarrassing. So, I mean, like I said, not getting any better, buckle up. And then last thing on what Dave said, yes, the dollar is being ruined. And yes, it is by the Federal Reserve. And no, Dave Smith would never kill himself. And so that's it, guys. I mean, I would say congratulations to Cuomo for having this debate, but honestly, I don't really think that he has much of a choice if he wants to have a career. So let's see. I mean, maybe there is a redemption arc. You wouldn't rule it out. Everybody deserves forgiveness and everybody can change their heart and mind, but I don't see it happening anytime soon, especially with his attitude during this debate. And I really don't think this helped him. So with that, guys, as per usual, you can find all my links below if you want to find my socials and what have you. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, right here. If you'd like to watch another one, right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.